Okay, well, hi everybody. I'm so happy to be here today. And today you are joining us live with both Lori and myself. And Lori, I know you just introduced yourself a moment ago, but if you could just take this moment and just kind of introduce like what you do out in the world and your passion and your purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said before, I reconnect people with their magic. So we all are our magic, and we're all capable of creating the lives that we want. And those lives free of addiction, free of anxiety, free of, all the limitations that we put on ourselves. And so my work is about helping you identify the blocks that are standing in your way, and then we knock them down and create lives of authenticity and fulfillment and joy.
That's so beautiful. And I forgot to mention that this is what we are joining hearts today for, our intention today is to help each person see where they are being authentic and maybe where they're not being fully authentic, and how we can be more authentic, because when we're more authentic, we feel more safe, we feel more in control, and we just feel genuinely more happy and more at peace in life.
Absolutely.
And so that's part of the intention today, is to really create that space within each and every one of you. So I love that this is so much of the work that you do. And then today I'm a part of your host. I'm Mellissa Wendell with Earth Feather Healings, also known as the Dancing Psychic. And I help people on their spiritual path, falling in love and honoring and owning that side of yourself, and learning how to listen to your intuition, your energetic body, your knowingness, your visions, and to use that way to help yourself as a first and foremost, and then also how to bring that light out into the world. Because when you're honoring your intuition, so many of us are just healers. And so when you're honoring that part of yourself, it really allows you to go out and help other people heal. And that's a huge piece of what I do, is I help teach you how to heal yourself and then how to heal others as a way to create a life of fulfillment and meaning. So,
and I would say what a beneficiary I have been of that beautiful work. And so it's just, life-changing. Absolutely.
Thank you. I received that. I appreciate it. Yes. And, I've been on this path for about 18, 19 years and helping people of all different walks of life for about 10 years. And it's been really beautiful because, Lori and I were talking before we come on here, is like really working with your wounded side and your shadow side. I feel like so many of us want to avoid that piece of ourselves.
Of course. Yeah. For various reasons, right? It's like, I don't want to see that, right? Often we think those are ugly parts, number one. Number two, they're really loud and sometimes, unmanageable parts. If we let those parts out, oh my gosh, life is going to be chaotic. So, but at the same time, without them, we don't really feel complete, do we? It's like putting parts of us down in the basement or locking them up. We can't feel that sense of authenticity and fullness. So it is so important to figure out how to work with what the shadow parts or the wounded parts of us.
Well, yeah, and just to even deepen it, because I feel as humans, hold on, I'm going to turn my light because I'm just realizing I look really dark. But I just feel like as humans, right, we think that there's something wrong with us, or that there was some part of our timeline in our past where we were shamed for who we were, or an action we did, or a response we had, when really there's nothing wrong with us. It was just a learning experience, or a curve in our life that we had to grow through, or a hiccup, and maybe it was a mistake, but my gosh, like nothing is a mistake. Like think about all the choices we've made where we're like, God, I wish I didn't make that choice in the end. But think of how incredible your growth was because of that place, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't even need to be as loud as, direct shame or even correction. Right? Sometimes those messages are so covert that we barely notice that they're happening, right? So if your, teacher notices, oh, wow, you did an amazing job on that artwork, right? And it hangs up somebody else's picture. The message in your mind is, they're more valuable than me. I'm not enough because I don't produce, beautiful artwork, or you overhear your parents talking about, oh, Judy must be so proud of Brad. He's achieved XYZ. And you're over there thinking, oh, I didn't achieve those things, So it's like every day, hundreds, thousands probably of messages that we get about who we could be in order to be enough, in order to be, worthy of love and acceptance. And man, does that really build up over time and create for us a version of ourselves that we think we need to be.
So much there, and I love also the examples you shared because they're so tangible and real and so simple. Yeah. Where it's like, wow, like on the big scheme, like maybe not that big of a deal, but it creates lasting impact and like a little soft ripple effect in your mind that might just keep you from, like maybe you stopped being an artist after that moment, mm-hmm. or maybe you stopped trying to achieve as much of your grades because it's like, why bother? Like somebody else is going to get that trophy, right? And there's something really important about that I'm sure you see in your line of work as well as I see with my clients, is that it's like oftentimes those experiences start really young, that we get those like formidable years and we get those locked into our subconscious, our memory, and then we keep creating from that place. Yeah, exactly. Instead of creating from like the place where all parts of us are loved, mm-hmm. and all parts of us are celebrated, right? Yeah. And it kind of has like a lasting ripple effect, and maybe not in the way that we want.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that you're bringing this up, because it's so important for us to understand that those early years were basically, that's our job, right? Our brains are designed and wired to be taking in that information from the outside and make sense of it and create for us an operating system that we will then take forward. And it's a pair of glasses. Essentially, we see the world through that. We see ourselves, we see other people. And if that pair of glasses or that operating system says, here's who you need to be, or these things, these qualities about you, those are not good qualities. Those are not qualities that you should be, letting out and living from. And when they're that young and we don't know any different, we don't even know what we're missing out on. We don't even know who this version of us is, that, what authenticity looks like for me, because I was so busy trying to figure out, who do you need me to be, that I never realized, who I wanted to be.
There's so much right there. Yeah. It's like, yes, like we spend so much, and I think it's fascinating to look back, and I'll just speak firsthand, like looking back and being like, wow, I've spent so much of my life trying to be who somebody else needed me to be, mm-hmm. versus who I wanted to be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that one of the stickiest parts of that is that we don't even realize it sometimes, because yes, we learned it in our formidable years, but then we became that voice. You're not doing enough. You're not. Who are you to this or that? And so we don't even sometimes associate it with a story, because it's our own voice now, and it's our own. We're our own drill sergeants and our own. I'm trying to think, like parole officers almost, right? We become that. So that's something that makes it really hard. And all the time people tell me, well, okay, I get what you're saying, like on an intellectual level, but I have no idea who I'm supposed to be, who I really am. So how do you compass back to something that you've not even experienced?
Well, and I think that's a really great inquisitive place to lean in right here, and also a perfect place for anyone who's like watching and listening, right? Where it's like, okay, one, I think there's a piece of understanding what your inner critic voice is saying, your debilitating thoughts, the opposite of the cheerleader thought in your voice, right? Mm-hmm. And I think there's a place of like being able to slow down enough to listen to that voice and just even create awareness that it's happening.
Yeah.
Right. And then also I feel like there's another piece where it's like, so once you hear that voice, like, what would you think the next best thing to do, Lori, would be?
Yeah. I really like that you highlighted the slowing down, because that's something that we do when we feel safe. We slow down, right? If we don't feel safe, we're running for our lives. We are just in high alert, hyper vigilant. We've got we're looking around, we're trying to identify the dangers, we're reacting to them. And that's obviously, we don't have access when we're doing that. We don't have access to that more expansive part of us, and it doesn't feel safe. So the slowing down is so crucial, but sometimes there's a lot of blocks to even be able to do that, right? So that's where we have to take a look at the nervous system. We have to really understand what's going on within the body, and so that we have practices like somatic experiencing, somatic yoga. That's our foundation. Because
I want to pause. Hold on, I want to pause right there because I think there's something really important, and I don't want to like skip through it. Is like the slowing down to create the safety in our body, right? And also, just a note in the future. I think for some people who don't know what somatic is, in a moment here, will you explain that? But that's just a note a tab it for me really quick. But it's like so many of us are so busy that we don't even create the time. And Lori, I'm just curious what your intake on this is. Do you feel like that sometimes we don't create the time because we're scared to hear it, or we're scared to actually stop and listen, or it feels uncomfortable even just to be with ourselves in that stillness for those few moments, or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah. Actually, this is such great timing, because I just finished yesterday the book that I'm working on right now. I just finished the chapter where I talk about there's 3 big blocks to slowing down, to looking inward, to doing these things. And one of them is, I use the example, if you're in survival mode, your body doesn't know that you're in survival mode because your plate is too full, or you have these challenges, or we live in the modern world, right? So your system is running through the open field, it's being chased by a bear, and I come along and I'm like, we should sit down and smell the spring wildflowers, wouldn't that be lovely? You're like, she's out of her mind. If we stop, the bear's going to eat us, right? So that's a really big one. It doesn't feel safe. The body is sending the message, run for your life. So yeah, why would it doesn't feel safe enough to even pause? Another big block to being able to slow down is it's scary in here, especially those of us who have experienced trauma. We shut down to our body sensations because those sensations were way more than we had the resilience and the capacity to process. So to now go back into the body, all that's waiting for us. It didn't go away just because we've been avoiding it all this time. So it's waiting there. And touching into the body can be a very scary and overwhelming experience. And the third thing really is this aspect of time and capacity. You have to have time and capacity in order to do this. And so many of us feel like, you know what, I don't have room for one more trip to the bathroom, let alone a healing journey. So what do you do with that, right? Yeah.
Well, and I think sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's the 3 big blocks, and they're real, so there's so many people who have a genuine desire to heal, and these blocks are getting in the way. They might get a book, or they might get in a program and then find, gosh, why can't I get into that? Why can't I implement the tools that they're teaching? I guess I'm too broken. I guess that doesn't work, right? And then we put it aside, and then a couple months later, that beautiful knowing inside calls us again to go find something. But meanwhile, we're racking up the evidence that we can't change and that we can't heal. And that's why it's so important to understand, no, these are the real blocks. It's not that you're too broken. It's not that things don't work. It's not that, you can't heal. It's these other things going on. And when we understand that, put our focus there, then people can really make progress. It's the foundation upon which everything else can be built.
There's so much there, and I love that you're writing a book about this. I just see it being so helpful out in the world, and simultaneously it's like, you know, being somebody firsthand who spends, you know, a portion of every part of my day meditating and creating sacred space for myself, is like, there's a few things that are coming up for me that I would just like to share for other people listening, or like tools, right? So I know for me, where it's like, when I'm avoiding taking time for myself, it's because I have so much other people's energy in my space that it feels uncomfortable. Right. And so that's usually my like first cue of like, oh, I need to sit down more than ever. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think the other thing is something I tell all of my clients all the time, right? So there's two things, right? The first thing is, the thing I tell my clients all the time, let's get to that, is I always tell them, set a timer, or like have like an accountability buddy. And what I do is I just send a 5 with a heart. And no matter what we're doing, like if we're in a meeting, we'll postpone it till after the meeting, but we both take 5, we turn our phones on silent, and we just sit still for 5 minutes and breathe. Mm-hmm. And it is fascinating how the energy system shifts in just 5 minutes of breathing. Even just like when I'm doing one-on-one sessions, or I'm teaching classes or workshops, and I have everybody breathe or just take 3 deep breaths, the entire energy in the class shifts. It goes from feeling like up here to like whoosh, like it drops, like you come into your body, you know?
Yeah.
I'm going to share one more thing, and then I'll pass her the talking stick. Is like, one of the things that I love doing, and I've gone in and out of this practice, and the story was, every morning I wake up and I do a morning meditation / yoga prayer. And I do that in the morning. Oh, Michelle just wrote there, I like the 5. Yeah, Michelle, it's a really great tool. I love that, Michelle. Thank you. If you have any questions too, feel free to put it in the chat. It's my one moment in the morning where I'm starting the day off with myself. Mm-hmm. I'm starting the day off with my breath, with my heart, with my intention. I say a prayer to things that I really love and value. You know, I say good morning to Mother Earth. I say good morning to my spiritual team. I say good morning, Mellissa, I love you. I say good morning to my inner child, right? I say good morning to the moon and the sun. And it literally takes 5 or 10 minutes out of my day to do that. Mm-hmm. But it's really interesting how I feel when I don't do it. Like, I feel scattered, I feel ungrounded. I'm like, I wake up and I'm just instantly racing for the day. Mm-hmm. And I've gone like long periods of times where I don't do it because I'm like, I just don't have time. I overslept, or I've got this, or I've got that. But now I'm to the point where I'm like, no, it's a non-negotiable. Mm-hmm. Because taking care of myself is non-negotiable. Taking care of my energy, my heart, my well-being becomes a non-negotiable. And when you start to really prioritize taking that sacred time with yourself, it allows you to feel safe feeling all the energy in the world, because you know what your inner compass, mm-hmm. and your inner dialogue, your inner vibration, your inner sensations and feelings are, that then you're not so scattered and taken advantage of or wobbling all day long with other people's energy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I call my morning practice like my pregame. It is, the place I come to get ready for life, right? And I so understand everything that you're saying. I really feel if I miss it, especially if it's more than a couple of days in a week, I'm walking around, I feel, the way I describe it is uncompassed. Like, where do I go? I don't know, because I didn't take the time to get compass to really, and it is such a safety generator for us, because when we are there, we're paying attention to ourselves. We're taking assessment, right? We're like, hey, what's going on for you? What might you be needing today? If we don't ever have the space to check in and figure out what we're needing, that's scary, isn't it? To not believe that our needs are going to be met. Like, that is one of the most terrifying experiences. And we just gloss over it. Yeah.
That's the bear chasing you.
Yeah, yeah. So it really is, and I love that you shared with us some of the things that you do in my practice. Kind of includes some of the same types of things, but it's so important that that's a place where we can't be prescriptive. Like you and I could never say, okay, here's the exact morning practice for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, do this, and it's magic, right? Because it's what you need, and it's such a delicious place where you get to go and ask the questions. What would suit me, and what would support me. And so making that morning practice about kind of just being open and seeing where the wind takes you, and where your heart wants to be led. And I would say that 5 minutes, if you're experiencing some of the blocks that we talked about a couple of minutes ago, that practice might start as 5 seconds, and that's okay. And that's okay. I have a woman, actually, she worked so hard to get her any kind of wiggle in, right? Where we could start to, where the first step that she had to take was just the acknowledgement. This is where a couple minutes could go. Done.
Mm.
That's how small we had to start in order to build that. And now she's got a morning practice, and she's got, all these beautiful sacred places. But man, she tried in a hamster wheel for so long to wiggle in there because she thought it had to be so expansive.
Mm.
And we think, oh, it's got to be an hour long or whatever. It might be 5 seconds to start.
And it's amazing what even that 5 seconds does. And I love that you bring that up, because I feel like that's so many people, right? Where they're like, I just can't have time, or it just feels a lot, or I sit and all my thoughts race. Well, I'm like, of course your thoughts are racing, because your body's racing, your energy's racing, and let's not shame it. Let's just neutralize it. Like, oh, and even in those, when I do sit that 5 minutes to myself, I'm not like Buddha, and I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure Buddha had huge thoughts in his mind too, right? But it's like, I have thoughts in my mind all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not judging them. I'm just breathing and being with them, where I'm like, oh yeah, and it's also a really beautiful time where solutions come through, like our mind finally has that like creative space to like hear our thoughts and to come up with like new ways of doing something. So it can be a really beautiful space.
Absolutely.
Oh, so Michelle wrote something. And Michelle, it's actually perfect that you asked this question, because I don't think you know this, but you could not have a better person on this hot seat with us right now. Michelle just asked, and Lori, it's so perfect for you. How do you uncover past experiences that are linked to eating habits?
Oh, wow.
Okay, so if you don't know this is one of Lori's niches, is healthy eating.
Yeah. Well, healthy eating, and really, overcoming unwanted patterns with food, as somebody who struggled with that for almost 4 decades, right? Where food and I were just at battle all the time. How do you reread the question again?
Of course. How do you uncover past experiences that are linked to eating habits?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the first place to really start there is to understand that the food is meeting a need right now. It is absolutely meeting a need. And we may feel a lot of animosity towards our behavior, and, really want to focus on changing the behavior. But that's usually the last place that's helpful to start. It's much better to back up and look at the need. What need is the food providing for? And when you start to understand that, it could be a lot of things. It could be entertainment. It could be soothing. It could be comfort. It could be save me from having to feel what's going on in my body. It can be to avoid, certain emotions. There's an endless list of ways that we use food to help us. And you're never bad for doing it. It's just that there are better ways, better, more supportive ways to go about meeting those needs. So if we can start to uncover what are the needs that are being met by the food, and they say, oh, that might be, it's a deep need for comfort. Okay, I have this deep need for comfort. Where did that come from? Where did I first notice that starting? And so it's this beautiful little segue into understanding more about ourselves and, where things might have come from. But focusing on the need as opposed to how do I change my behavior? How do I stop this? How do I control myself? How do I use my willpower in the moment? That's never going to produce long-term results. It's really about understanding why, what need is here present for me right now.
So, Lori, does that look as simple as being like, okay, so say there's a food that you can't get over, right? Where you're like, okay, I just like can't get over eating cheese. I just want to eat it all the time, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a part of you intuitively that just feels like, I know I shouldn't be eating this, right? And so does that look like just slowing down and just like asking the dairy, like, what is it that I'm actually needing or getting or wanting from you?
Yeah. I mean, usually it's both psychological and physiological. Very rarely is it totally one or the other, right? So it might be for, when we think of cheese, we think of creamy, we think of, these experiences that we might want to create for ourselves. But also on the physiological side, we're actually more prone to crave things that are not good for our system. So, for example, cheese, dairy has casein proteins, which actually, if our body is not in a healthy place to be digesting them, it creates a little immune response. And that immune response gives us a little hit, a histamine, so that it gives us, a little bit of feel good. And it also, of course, depending on what the food is, impacts the dopamine in our brain. And we also have to pull in here our gut microbiome, because our gut microbiome has cravings, wants to eat what they like to eat. And so we have the physiological component, absolutely, as well as the psychological. So you happen to mention dairy, and dairy is one where we do see a lot of the physiological aspects to it as well. So we want to do both. Everything is about, brain and body, mind and body. It's never about one or the other. And so the approach that we take has to marry these and understand what's going on in both segments.
Well, yeah, and I even think too, just like on the psychological piece, so Michelle, like, I remember years ago when I wanted to start eating a whole foods diet, like a whole foods way, where it's just, and the one thing, Lori knows this story, but I couldn't get rid of the gluten. Like, I just wanted bread. Yeah. And then finally one day, like, I knew like when my starting point was going to be, and I was like, okay, the one thing I can't get rid of is like gluten, what's underneath it. And I love like sweet food, like donuts, toast with butter on it, right? And then all of a sudden I had this memory about the donut where I was like, wow, when I was a little girl, my dad would take me to go buy donuts before he would take me to work with him in the morning. Mm-hmm. And it was the one time that I really felt his unconditional love for me. Yeah. And so it wasn't so much the donuts that I loved, it was the feeling of having unconditional love from my dad that I loved. Yeah, yeah. And in that moment, my addiction to the donuts and the sweet bread just lifted, where I was like, oh, it hasn't been bread this whole time. It's been that feeling, that memory, that sensation that I loved and craved.
Absolutely. You were seeking unconditional love in that moment, and donuts was a stand-in for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Donuts was like the memory connected to unconditional love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wanted to make sure to bring something of value to this space and to the people who are watching. And I think, especially for you, Michelle, I have a mini course called Break Up with Emotional Eating. And that's something. So it's such a big topic. It's not as simple as figure out what you're needing and you'll be just fine. So I don't mean to make it like that. It's just, that's where to put your focus. But this mini course will really, I think, give you a wonderful starting point to this journey with food.
Michelle says thank you. And Lori, can you, and I'll just type it in the chat, tell me how she can find that, and I'll type it in the chat.
Absolutely. I'm gonna need to look that up and send it in a separate. Yeah.
And also, Michelle, I think you are on, if you're on Instagram, she's at Lori, Lori, and then Montry, Montry. And then are you on Facebook too, Lori?
Yes. Lori Montry Coaching.
Lori Montry Coaching. So if you can find her on there too. When we work on that link.
There's so much even that we uncovered here, and just that permission to think about who am I really, and what that could look like, and what stands in my way from even beginning to understand what that is, let alone living from that place, right? And I know that there's a lot that goes into that, and right now both of us have some special offerings for people to be able to go a little deeper with this material. And so I would love to hear more about the two offerings that you've got open right now. And I have to say, I have been dying to be a student in these offerings.
Oh, really?
Because they're just so rich. And every time, I'm reading through it, oh, this is going to be so good. So I'd love to hear.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Laura. Yes. And just one thing I want to say really quick that you said is like the permission to slow down, the permission to take time. And I also feel like curiosity is really huge. Like allowing yourself to be curious, like, why can't I slow down? Why am I not allowing 2 seconds to just breathe? Why am I so addicted to this food? Like what's underneath it? Like, my teachers always talk about like peeling the onion, and I'm sure you've heard that term a lot, like the onion has lots of layers. We have lots of layers, like
goodness, we do. No. But we would not be very interesting if we were just one layered.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. And think about just even as a child, like all the different minds and people that have like formed us and impacted us and changed us. And I always say, when I'm looking at people's DNA and readings and stuff, I'm like, I swear to goodness, like we just spend our whole lives trying to like clean out other people's energy just to like find our truth,
So true. So true. Yeah.
Which actually brings me right to the offering. So I have 2 beautiful workshops coming up right now. And one of them kind of weaves into the second one. So the first one can be standalone. And if you do the second one, the first one is kind of mandatory of the second one. So the first offering that I have going on is I have a 9-week program called Empath with Boundaries. And it literally is just what I was talking about. It's really understanding what is other people's energy and finding out what is your energy so that you can really start to decipher and like disconnect and like unmuddle it. So that you can find your more authentic self, and also so you energetically feel safe and grounded and in control of your own energy field, your own thoughts, your own mind, your own emotions, your own body. Because when you're really grounded in that beautiful place, it just makes life clearer and you can make decisions faster. And you also kind of know, like, nope, left is not meant for me, right is not meant for me, straight is meant for me, And so you can become more discerning.
Yeah.
And so that's a 9-week program where I really, you're going to be learning an entire treasure chest of tools to learn how to do all of these beautiful things that I swear to goodness you take with you your whole life. I've learned these tools 19 years ago, and I still use them every single morning,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the second one is Psychic School. So Psychic School uses it's actually a year-long program, and we meet weekly. We do take about 1 week off every month just to allow your body to implement and integrate all the teachings, because it really does change your energetic vibration. So Empath with Boundaries is like the first part of it, because you have to learn tools to clean out so that you can get more into your spiritual psychic awareness. And then the whole program is really learning how to start activating and enhancing your intuition. And you really learn exact tools on how to start reading other people's energy as well as yourself. So you'll be learning how to read how people are showing up, how they're communicating, their past lives, their auras, their chakras, and you'll be learning how to do healings on other people as well as yourself. So at the end of the year-long program, you'll actually have like 3 different full-blown tools that you can use if you wanted to create a livelihood or a life path out of this to really help other people. Because, you know, I think about it, it's like, you know, my teacher has, God, she's probably taught as many readings as I've done. She's probably taught 3,000 people out in the world how to do certain things. And, you know, then I've done over 3,000 readings, you know, so imagine like the ripple effect of how much it impacts and enlightens and frees people.
Yes. And I've always thought, you know, when I was going through my food challenges and things, I always thought like, if all of this and all of the work that I'm doing right now, if it frees one person, totally worth it. Totally worth it, because it is, you know, that freedom and in a life, you know, so absolutely. And as I'm listening and thinking about this, you know, you would say we all have that. We all have these gifts inside. And this is what I call the sacred self. You might say the psychic self. I would say the sacred self. And the sacred self is just your truth, right? Cleared of everybody else's influences. Not entirely. We're not talking about creating sociopaths. We're talking about creating people who know who they are and are connected with their truth and their authenticity. And in the sacred self, we are our most brilliant, resourced, divine versions of ourselves. And so we've created a retreat, a weekend-long retreat, Thursday to Monday, in Denver, specifically.
Wait, hold on. I want to pause there because I felt like that was like a little unclear. So really quick, Lori is about to tell you about her beautiful offering, and because she does value so much coming home to her sacred self and how that can impact people. So sorry, Lori, I had to stop there because like it felt unclear in my mind there. So I just wanted to pause and just give the segue. So Lori, will you speak about your upcoming event that you have happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was just so perfect. I grabbed that self. Yes, that's what we're talking about. Yeah. So March 20th through 24th. So right around the corner, we're going to spend the weekend in our sacred selves. Really getting reconnected with that sanctity, and as opposed to living life from the wounded self, which are all those stories and the baggage that we have put on ourselves. And you know, there's a lot that we're going to be able to do together. But one of the things is really working on those blocks that I mentioned before. Maybe this is something that you've been trying to do, and you've been running around in circles, wondering what's the next step. Why is this not working for me? And it may be that you've not had the various pieces. So we're going to work from the top down, meaning looking at your operating system and your mindset. We're also going to work from the bottom up, meaning it's a somatic yoga retreat where we're going to spend some time getting into the body, feeling safe in the body, because safety is a prerequisite for coming home to ourselves. So I'm super excited. We can check out, I can put the link for to check out the retreat in here.
Can you verbalize it to me too, so I can put it in the chat? Where is it located again too, Lori?
Denver, Colorado.
Oh my gosh, which is perfect for all of us people here.
Exactly. It's the www.sacredselfretreat.com.
I think it's just so beautiful. It's so safe. Sacredselfretreat.com, you said?
Yes. Yeah. And you'll see the page has all the information. We're going to nourish ourselves, right, through really clean anti-inflammatory, specially prepared foods. We're going to, it's that beautiful balance of nourishment, curriculum. We've also got some fun things planned together. So it's a beautiful space, and it is for sure one of the most transformative offerings I've ever brought into being. So I'm really excited for that.
And I also feel like too, it's so important right now in our timeline of history and our events, right? Like there's so much chaotically moving and shifting that it can feel really airy and ungrounded and just like a little turbulent, maybe.
Yeah.
That it's like there's something really profound and magnificent, specifically in moments like this when there's so much heat shifting, to really being able just to like come here, because it gives you that sense of knowingness of like it's going to be okay, because you're so comfortable and safe and sacred in your body that it's like, okay, no matter what happens, I'm seeing it without blinders and I'm seeing it full on, and I'm able to like respond and be capable of any experience that's going to come forward.
Yeah. Whereas the wounded self might look at life and what's going on and say, I don't know what to do. I feel scared. I feel, all these things. Sacred self knows exactly what to do. She knows exactly what to do. She has the clarity and she has the confidence. She knows the steps. She can navigate any situation. And that's why it is so important to come back, to know how to get back, and then how to stay there, right? Because it's so easy to get. And that's one of the benefits I feel of the immersive experience, as opposed to, a book that you might read, or even a program where you do the thing and then you go back into your world. And going back into your world essentially like sucks up, all the progress you just made. And so being able to be there and really live into it, relax into it, and be fully immersed is, I think, one of the huge benefits of retreat living. And so it's a totally different experience.
And I think too, it's like, I'm just even thinking about like empathic boundaries in psychic school and sacred self retreat. Like there is that immersion, and what I think is often not fully seen but felt is that when you do immerse yourself in it, it's like then you become embodied with it. And when you become embodied with it, your vibration starts to feel it. And when your vibration and your nervous system start to feel it, it's more easily attainable and grabbable when you're out in the world doing like your normal 9 to 5 functions and like things are rattling. It's like, oh, but your body now has new neuron pathways. It now has a new memory of like, oh, remember how this feels. Drop into that space.
Yeah. It's no longer you trying to use the tools or whatever. It's just who you are. And that's the point where it just, it's a new way of being, as opposed to this is me trying to, apply these tools in this situation, remember what I'm supposed to do and all that. That there's a time for that, because that's how, you do embrace it and start to integrate. But what you're talking about is that awesome place where it's like, this is just who I am. I don't even have to think about it anymore, right? I'm just led there by that inner knowing.
Yeah, and by the way, Michelle, thank you. She just said this was amazing. Appreciate that. But I think too, it just becomes like who you are organically. Like I'm even thinking about it this weekend. I had an opportunity to go out and shake my booty, right? And I love dancing. It's one of my most favorite ways to be liberated. But I went to this place and everyone I was meeting was like an hour late, but the music was off the hook. People were dancing, and so I just kind of stood in the back and like waited, found an empty table, and I just started dancing. I was just in my own divine, authentic light, where I was like, I just know how impactful because and how freeing it is to move my body this way. And I also have done so much of the inner work that it's like I just love so many parts of my shadow, my dark, my wounds, as well as my light, that I felt comfortable just to be my most liberated self and just dance, and, an hour and a half later, I had moved locations, my people had shown up, and I would have random people throughout the night walk up to me and like, I saw you earlier. Yes, you're my spirit animal. You're glowing. I just love you. And it's like, and I bring that up because that's in all of us. We all have our inner glow. We all have our inner radiance. And the more that you are in touch and in love with that sacred piece of yourself, it's effortless and it's effervescent. It just flows off of you, and it's contagious, and it's magnifying, right? And so I just think it's such an important piece of us to like do that inner work, Because it's just an opportunity to fall that much more in love with yourself.
Right. And life is no longer, this heavy mess of just constant, because we have to be honest, there is a lot of chaos in our environment, so much going on. And, this reminds me that this beautiful experience of yours reminds me of my 9-year-old who has Down syndrome. And that is her every single minute of every single day. And I always say, I want to be her when I grow up, because she is just, the other day I took her for a haircut. And while it was my turn and she was waiting for me, they're playing the music and stuff. So she's in the waiting room and she is just singing and dancing, and like people come in and she's like, hey, hi, you want to see what I'm coloring? It's good, huh? Yeah, it's a princess. And she's just like, this is me, come take it in. And there's just so much joy, constant joy. And so what a great example of, how we were meant to live.
I know. Someone yesterday was talking about Forrest Gump. They were watching Forrest Gump and how he just didn't care. He was like, hi, how you doing? Right. Did you see my chocolates? It's like when you're just so in love with life and who you are, you just become unadulterated. You become uninhibited. I don't know if unadulterated is the right word, but you kind of become like the no F's, you're like, oh, it's just so great, and
I feel like women in their mid years, as we enter perimenopause and then menopause, like that's what this time is really about. It's really about reclaiming. We'd spent so much time where it was all about family and all the things, and now we get to reclaim some of that for ourselves.
I just learned this yesterday. Have you read the book Fast Like a Girl?
Mindy Pelz, Dr. Mindy Pelz. Absolutely. Her work, I incorporate a lot of, in the right circumstances and but it's our ability to change our bodies and our health by fasting is insane. The research is unbelievable.
Okay, so I haven't read it yet. I just picked it up like 3 days ago.
Okay.
But I just hired a personal fitness coach, and she was showing me something about Mindy Pelz, that she said menopause is this really beautiful time because it's like, and I see it energetically, but she put a scientific terminology behind it. It's like, okay, I'm going to speak to it energetically, and then I'll speak to Mindy, and I feel like you can speak more powerfully to it, but energetically, like I see our blood as women used to go down to the earth, we used to let it go, that piece of our creation, it's a huge thing of what are we going to create and then letting it go, what are we going to create and letting it go. And when we go into menopause, it's like our blood is no longer leaving and going back to the earth, it's coming back up. That's where I see the heat flashes. It's because our power is rising back through our bodies, right? Mm-hmm. And she was saying that Mindy was speaking about women live longer because of menopause, because it gives us a second wind of life.
Yeah. Isn't that cool? And, our hormone profile changes to support more of our inner resourcing, right? So estrogen comes down, and estrogen was the thing that made us outward and made it, want to be doing all these stuff. So as our hormones change in menopause, we actually, our brains are more focused internally rather than externally. So it's this beautiful, combination of things that's happening for us to become, and think about it. Now we get to become those wise, beautiful sages, right? And all of these things. And so I really love, that we can start to see menopause differently. For so long, and certainly I was taught, and all the women in my family had really lots of struggles with menopause. And actually on my birthday at the end of next month, I am celebrating that I navigated menopause and I'm as nothing. This I noticed a little thing here, a little thing there, nothing, not a single hot flash, nothing. Because, and part of that is my mindset around it. Part of it is that educating myself to find out what's really going on. And it does not have to be this horrific time of life that steals your focus and your body and all the things. We have tools to when we understand what's going on in the body, we can do amazing things. But yeah, menopause is exciting. And so I say that because I want to encourage as many people as I could get my hands on to not just assume that it's going to be a shit show, because it absolutely does not have to be. There are tweaks. There are things I changed in order to respond to my body, but knowing what they are and having somebody, to guide that. So that's another branch of my work that I've loved, being in that space myself, that I've loved to help women to get through powerfully.
Well, I know who I'm coming to because I'm 43, so I'm going to be entering it at some point. But it's so fascinating because, like, looking at how my mom went through menopause, like she definitely had like the hot flashes and like excessive, it's her story to share, not mine. But then I think about my aunt, her sister, she's like, her menopause literally consisted of, she woke up one day, no longer had a period. So that was it. Wow, so drastically different.
Right. And so much of it is, our environment and stuff. But I will say for all women, we enter perimenopause about up to 15 years before menopause. Crazy. So if we can start to understand, and that was one of the things that helped me so much, was to understand those little things that were coming, and some preventative things that we can do early in the process, so that it is something that we just sail through and then get on to the new things that we have in life.
So I have to know, do you have like a blueprint or a workshop on this? Because if not, it needs to be happening, Lori, because there's so much sage in there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have a comprehensive health program that is as a foundation for everything, including menopause, including, weight loss and insulin resistance, fatty liver. Like, it comes down, which is so beautiful, to the same set of protocols. And when you're following those, you basically take care of everything. It's how to best support your body. And then there are tweaks for the individual, circumstances, fatty liver, menopause, whatever it is.
Well, it's fun because I've been really drawn to start doing fatty liver cleanses. So I've been I bought a juicer. I've been doing lemon and ginger in the morning. And I also notice sometimes I'm like, my body does not want it, and I drink and it tastes like throw up. And I'm like, okay, I knew I didn't want it. And then it tasted gross, I'm just listening to the body. But it's interesting that I love that I'm already intuitively following some of that,
That right there, you said it all, because there is no protocol that is going to be, here you go, do this and you're going to be just fine. I mentioned protocols, but they're really about first understanding your body and its messaging and knowing, is intermittent fasting for me? There is a handful of people that it's not. There's other people who it needs to be very closely tailored for them, and in menopause and all the different things. So the programs are really more about teaching you how to listen and giving you the opportunity to try things on and collect data. But that's why it's so confusing, isn't it? When we get on the internet or whatever and we put something in and we have immediately 500 experts, each of them telling us something different with the studies to back it up.
Yeah.
And where do we go from there? It's so frustrating. And you said it. We've got to learn to tune in to know what my body is saying. That's it. And that's what we do. And that's how we be successful.
What I love this so much, and I know we should wrap up, is tomorrow's my last day of teaching a 3-week workshop that I've been leading. It's called Intuitive Heart Workshop. And it was actually birthed from my first retreat I wanted to host last year, called Intuitive Heart Retreat. And it's so fun because the homework from last week to this week has been intuitive eating, where I'm like, go to the grocery store. I gave them a little exercise to do before. I was like, do not take a list. And I want you to go through the grocery store and ask your body, body, what do I need? What do I want? And grab random ingredients. Don't make something from scratch that I was like, no, wait, don't make something that make something from scratch. You might make a whole new thing, just listen to what the body's wanting to educate you and teach you and expand you in,
Absolutely, because it knows. And when we have to come back to that wisdom as part of our sanctity and what a beautiful way to be cared for. Because if we're not paying attention to ourselves, what kind of message does that? If you and I are friends, if we never paid any attention to each other, and didn't ask, like, spent time catching up and, talking together. If we didn't do that, how could we wouldn't even have a friendship in the first place, right? So listening, of course, if I just told you as friends, like, you're coming over, this is what you're eating. Oh, you don't like that? I don't care. That's not very, right?
That's how I talk to my boyfriend sometimes. I'm like, I don't really care. I made it just to eat it.
Well, that's okay once in a while, right? But when we're telling our body that every single day, all the time, oh, I don't care if you like this person, smile at them and talk to them anyway. I don't care if you like this food, I don't care that you need sleep, get up and, whatever. Not the best relationship. So
I know. And I think there's something really beautiful there is like, and it goes all the way back to like your sacred self retreat, right? It's like learning how just to love and then also psychic school and empath with boundaries, like learning how to love and listen to all parts of you so that you can really be the most beautiful, most authentic version of yourself that, it's like,
and when nobody else is there to dance with, or that, feels free and alive and valued in the world.
I think that's it. I keep saying we're going to end this year, but we really will end this year, I promise. But it's like, I get a lot of people being like, how are you so joyful all the time? And I've tried to think about like, okay, how can I teach joy? And I think it just landed. It's like authentically loving yourself is absolutely pure joy.
Right.
It's like,
and how to do that is, that's not easy.
That's the work.
So,
yeah,
that's the work. And so we've got these things right now, these tools and offerings that is a wonderful start to that big picture. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I so appreciate you and having the time to spend with you. What a joy.
It's always such a gift to share space with you, Lori, and to, you're just such a well of information, and it's just such a plethora of gifts to receive. So I appreciate it. And again, anybody who's looking to connect or work with Lori, if you feel drawn to her, I invite you to follow your intuition. It's sacredselfretreat.com. Also, you can find her under Instagram, under Lori Montry, or Facebook, Lori Montry Coaching.
Exactly.
And if you feel drawn to me, did you want to say something else about that?
No, I just wanted to make sure that people can find you.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So you can find me on TikTok or Instagram under Dancing Psychic, and also under Earth Feather Healing. So then I also do have a Facebook group called Blissful Spirituality. And if you want to work with me, my website is Earth Feather Healings. You can also just send me a message. My website shows all of, I do one-on-one readings. And then this really is the year where I've been teaching for a lot of years, but this is really the year where like teaching is my main focus. And so, yes, if you are wanting to develop your spirituality and your connection to yourself, find me, because that's what we're doing over here. So thank you all for being here.
I have been the beneficiary of your beautiful gifts and cannot say enough about the benefit that's brought to my life.
Thank you. And there's something I wanted to share, and I don't think it's too personal, but if it is, so one of the things with Lori that I loved so much, because she has 6 beautiful children, was that, and we were talking about not having time earlier. Like, Lori did the majority of her sessions in her closet because it was the one place where she could like be away from all of the kids, because you homeschooled too.
Yeah. Talk about, so I do, really, I know how to practice what I preach as far as how do we find the space for ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did so much of my spiritual training with my daughter climbing on my lap.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I tell my students, I'm like, it's actually the best tool ever, because you learn how to, like, A, multitask, but two, you really learn how to listen while cultivating this, and your child benefits because they're learning how to, like, do some of these things with you energetically, you know? So, you know, even if you're in your closet, whatever, you know, maybe the toilet, you know, it's the one place where the door locks, you know?
Yeah, it's about me. When you're the priority, you'll find a way.
I think that's a nice closing statement. When you're the priority, you will find a way. And with that, we thank you for a beautiful live experience. Thank you, Michelle, for having comments and contributing in here. I appreciate it, and asking really great questions. And to all of you, we love you. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.